Welcome to the Deep Dive. It is Sunday, January 18, 2026. Today, we aren't just looking at a map of the Middle East, we are looking at a blueprint. The architecture of the region, it's being redrawn in real time. And depending on where you stand, it either looks like a breakthrough or a very fragile facade.
It's a moment of profound dissonance, really. Over the first 2 weeks of January, we've been watching two completely different movies playing on the same screen. In Washington, in Jerusalem, it's a high-gloss diplomatic drama. You have new titles, peace boards, grand charts. But then you look at the raw feed coming out of Gaza, and we're pulling directly from the Stylo Intel ops data. It's a gritty, violent struggle. Nothing has changed.
That disconnection is exactly what we need to unpack. This deep dive is brought to you by ProWave AI and is powered by Stylo News. And when you mention that raw feed, it's important for you, the listener, to understand what that means. Stylo News is the consumer interface for Stylo Intel Ops. That's the same intelligence software used by government agencies, the military, enterprise operations.
Which means we're looking at the same data patterns that global decision makers are seeing right now. We're stripping away the noise of the press releases to see the actual signals.
So let's look at the biggest signal in that noise, this Board of Peace. The Trump administration has rolled out phase 2 of its 20-point plan. And when I look at the documentation, I was struck by how corporate it all feels. It's an org chart for the Gaza Strip.
It's explicitly corporate. That's a design feature, not a bug. The logic seems to be that political negotiation has failed for 70 years, so let's try management theory. They've set up a three-tiered system. At the bottom, you have the Technocratic Committee, a local Palestinian government meant to handle day-to-day affairs.
So sewage, electricity, basic administration.
Exactly. The people who keep the lights on and clear the rubble. And if you look at the man tapped to lead it, Ali Sheikh, the strategy's even clearer. He's a technocrat, not a warlord. The U.S. is banking on him being, well, boring. They want competence, not charisma.
Okay, but then you move up the chart.
You move up to the Executive Committee, and then at the very top, the International Board of Peace.
And that top tier it's just unprecedented. I was looking at the personnel list, and it's frankly shocking. You have the executive director, Nikolay Mladen, former UN guy, capable diplomat. That makes sense.
A safe pair of hands.
Right. But the chairman of the board is the President of the United States, Donald Trump himself.
It is a massive deviation from diplomatic protocol. A president would normally delegate this to a special envoy. By putting his own name as chairman, Trump is signaling two very specific things. First, this is his highest priority. And second, he doesn't trust the traditional diplomatic channels to run it. He wants to be the face of this restructure.
That's a huge gamble. If it fails, his name is literally on the letterhead. It's not the peace process. It becomes the Trump board.
And look who's on that board with him. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and then, maybe the most controversial name of all,
Tony Blair.
Former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair.
Now, in the West, he's often seen as an elder statesman. But in the region, that is a name that carries a lot of baggage.
Baggage is putting it mildly. If you look at the sentiment analysis from regional media Palestinian outlets, Al Jazeera Blair is still viewed as one of the architects of the Iraq War. His presence just fuels this narrative that this isn't a peace board, but a neo-colonial administration.
The critique being that you have a committee of Westerners, plus American developers like Witkoff, trying to manage Gaza from a boardroom.
Precisely. It creates an immediate legitimacy problem. The neo-colonial label is dangerous because it gives opponents a very easy narrative to sell to the population. They are here to rule you, not help you.
And to enforce that rule, they've appointed Major General Jasper Jeffers to command an international stabilization force. So on paper, we have a clear mission. Disarmament, Israeli withdrawal, reconstruction.
In theory, yes. But as we shift to what's happening on the ground, that theory collides with a very kinetic reality.
Let's cross that gap. Because while these charts were being signed, the past 2 weeks in Gaza have been anything but peaceful. There's supposed to be a ceasefire on paper. How real is it?
It's extremely fragile. The pattern of life analysis shows frequent violations. We had a significant flare-up just last week, around January 8th and 9th.
What triggered it?
It began with a single projectile fired from Gaza. Now, intel suggests this was likely a rogue faction, perhaps a signal from Hamas remnants that they're still there. But Israel's response was immediate and, by design, overwhelming. Airstrikes in both northern and southern Gaza, Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah specifically.
And the casualty reports, the toll was significant.
At least 13 Palestinians were killed.
Okay.
And reports confirmed children were among the dead. This is the cycle we're stuck in. One projectile, massive retaliation, funeral processions, and the anger from those funerals fuels the next projectile. The board of peace hasn't broken that loop.
And amidst that violence, the airstrikes, there's the quieter violence of displacement. We talk about technocrats fixing the electricity, but we saw a report from the Yarmouk displacement camp that really brings home how far away normal is.
You're referring to the tent fire.
Yes. That story really stuck with me, a grandmother and her 5-year-old grandson.
That tragedy was so powerful because it wasn't an airstrike, it wasn't combat. They died because it was January, it was cold, and they were trying to cook food inside a nylon tent. They had nowhere else to go.
It's a stark reminder that the status quo is lethal even when the shooting stops.
It is. And this is why Angelina Jolie's recent visit mattered. She stopped at the Rafah crossing, a hospital nearby. It wasn't just a photo op. It put a global camera lens on that specific misery. For the people in those tents, Tony Blair is an abstraction. The cold, the hunger, that's their only reality.
Which brings us to the core sticking point, the elephant in the room. We have a peace plan that calls for disarmament. We have a board to oversee it. But are the people with the guns actually willing to give them up?
And this is the deadlock. The U.S. and Israel are completely aligned on this. For Phase 2 to proceed, Hamas must disarm. And not just heavy weaponry. Israel is insisting on small arms as well. Prime Minister Netanyahu has been very clear. He's demanding security guarantees and the return of hostage remains. The case of Ranjavili is mentioned constantly.
And Hamas's position.
Equally rigid. Now, interestingly, they have agreed to dissolve their government. They are willing to hand over administrative power to Ali Shah and the technocrats.
So they're happy to outsource the headache of running the place.
Exactly. Collecting taxes and fixing sewers in a war zone is a nightmare. They want to offload that.
Yeah.
But they refuse to give up their weapons.
So they'll hand over the responsibility of trash collection, but they're keeping the RPGs.
That is the perfect way to put it. They see their weapons as their only leverage. In their calculation, if they disarm, they're vulnerable. They view arms as essential for resistance until a Palestinian state is recognized.
It's the classic security dilemma. Israel can't leave if Hamas is armed. Hamas won't disarm if Israel is there.
And in the middle of this, we had a major confirmation about Hamas leadership. For months, there were rumors about Mohammed Sinwar, the military chief.
Right.
Hamas finally confirmed his death in late December. But the fact check is crucial here. He wasn't killed recently. Intel confirms he died back in May 2025.
So why confirm it now?
It's likely a move to clear the deck. As this board comes online, they need to restructure. His successor is expected to be Izzeldin Haddad. So while diplomats talk about technocrats, the armed wing is actively reorganizing its command. They are not acting like a group preparing to disband.
And Israel sees that, presumably.
They do. And that's why the Israeli military is preparing contingency plans. The intelligence indicates planning for a new ground offensive, a potential spring offensive, around March 2026, if this diplomatic track fails.
The clock is ticking.
The clock is absolutely ticking.
Let's zoom out a bit. We have the U.S. pushing this plan. Israel is cautious. Hamas is hedging. What about the rest of the neighborhood? How is the region reacting?
It's fragmented. You have the traditional mediators, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey. They are publicly backing the U.S. initiative, but privately, there is immense wariness.
Turkey is an interesting case. They're actually on the board, right?
Yes, and that's a point of friction. Turkey was included to leverage their ties with Hamas, but Israel objected to their inclusion. So you have friction inside the board before its first meeting.
But not everyone is just reacting. Some countries are making specific strategic moves. You flagged something on Pakistan that I found fascinating.
It's a masterclass in geopolitical maneuvering, really. The U.S. needs troops for that international stabilization force. They need Muslim-majority nations to contribute so it doesn't look like a Western occupation.
Right. If it's American troops, it's an invasion. If it's Indonesian or Pakistani troops, it's stabilization.
Exactly. And Pakistan would be a prime candidate. But they have zero interest in sending their soldiers into the Gaza meat grinder. It would be political suicide.
But they can't just say no to the U.S.?
No. So what do? They're hosting Hamas leaders in Islamabad.
Wait, explain that logic. How does hosting Hamas help them avoid sending troops?
It allows them to pivot. They can say, look, Washington, we are engaging diplomatically. We are a neutral venue for dialogue. We can't send troops to fight these guys when we're mediating with them.
Sorry, I can't be the cop. I'm too busy being the negotiator.
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's a very savvy way to stay out of the crossfire while still looking important.
That's incredible. Meanwhile, in Europe, the response seems quite different.
Completely. Spain, under Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, has expressed readiness to deploy peacekeepers. They're leaning in. That contrasts with the general caution from the rest of Europe, which is happy to fund reconstruction, but hesitant to put soldiers on the ground.
Okay, so we have a plan. We have a board, a fragile ceasefire. What should we and our listeners be watching for in the next few weeks? What does the Stylo analysis tell us?
There are three main indicators. First, the Technocratic Committee. Watch for the official activation of Ali Shaf's team inside Gaza. If they can actually sit at desks and start clearing rubble, that's a sign the administrative track is working.
Indicator 1, does the government actually govern?
Second, troop contributions. We mentioned Spain and Pakistan. Watch Indonesia. There's been some early interest. If nations actually commit soldiers to Major General Jeffers' force, the plan becomes real. If not, the board is just a debating society.
And the third?
The threat of escalation. That's spring offensive. The intelligence points to a March 2026 timeframe. If the disarmament deadlock isn't broken by late February, the risk of a major Israeli ground operation skyrockets. This window of opportunity is closing fast.
It feels like we're watching a massive re-engineering of the entire Middle East.
We are. And that leaves us with a final provocative thought. Can a top-down board of peace, literally chaired by the American president, succeed where decades of negotiations failed? Or will the refusal to disarm doom this to become just another intermission in a forever war? We are testing the idea that you can impose stability from the outside. The region's history suggests that is a very dangerous bet.
A dangerous bet indeed. Before we sign off, we want to remind you that the analysis you heard today was powered by Stylo News.
Stylo News is not just a news aggregator. It's an application for your mobile and computer that lets you download and customize personal intelligence-style briefs. It pulls from hundreds of sources, including X, using AI to synthesize the data just like we did today.
If you want to have this kind of depth on demand, turning raw information into actual intelligence, go to www.stylonews.com and subscribe. It is a powerful tool for staying informed.
It really is.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive. We know these topics are heavy, but understanding them is the only way to navigate the world we live in. You can request topics for future deep dives by following Stylo News on your favorite social media.
Stay curious, question the narratives, and we will see you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye for now.